In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at Paper Cuts. Paper Cuts is the sixth track off of Nirvana's debut record Bleach. Paper Cuts was written in the fall of 1987, about a year and a half before Bleach was released on June 15th, 1989. Paper Cuts is one of Nirvana's heaviest songs, and it's regarded by fans and critics alike as an example of Nirvana's quote-unquote true grunge sound. In Chris Novoselic's own words, Paper Cuts was awesome. That is like the quintessential grunge song. There's power, there's cohesion, it's just like one riff, one note. In September of 1986, when Kurt was just 19 years old, he moved into 1000 East 2nd Street in Aberdeen, a small house which was known as the Shack due to its less than stellar condition. Not too far from the Shack, Chris Novoselic's mother owned a beauty parlor, Maria's Hair Design. Chris and Kurt would jam upstairs at Maria's Hair Design as well as at the Shack. After months of jamming with different drummers, by early 1987, Aaron Burkhardt was chosen as the first official drummer for the band. Kurt and Chris knew each other from high school, but they became friends while hanging out with each other at Melvin's practices. Interestingly, that's also how Kurt and Chris got to know Aaron Burkhardt. Aaron Burkhardt was another person who used to hang out at Melvin's practices. Aaron was originally from West Seattle and had moved to Aberdeen as a teenager. Aaron used to live behind Dale Crover's house in Aberdeen, Dale Crover's house, of course, being the epicenter of Melvin's practices. I used to go over and watch the Melvins practice a lot. Every time they practiced, I was over. It was just something to do. I was amazed at how loud they were. According to Matt Lukin, the original bass guitarist for the Melvins, at one point, the Melvins had considered Aaron Burkhardt as a possible replacement for their original drummer Mike Dillard, but in the end they went with Dale Crover instead. Aaron soon became Nirvana's first official drummer, even though the group wasn't called Nirvana just yet. They went through a series of name changes such as Fecal Matter, Skid Row, and Ted Ed Fred before deciding on Nirvana. I just want to mention, by the way, that Kurt formed an entirely different band 2 years earlier in 1985, which was also called Fecal Matter. One of the members of Fecal Matter was Dale Crover, and together, Kurt and Dale recorded a demo tape called Illiteracy Will Prevail. Some of the songs on that demo tape would be re-recorded as Nirvana songs later on, but I do want to point out that Fecal Matter from 1985 is technically a separate entity from Nirvana. I know there's a bit of confusion about that. I'll be making a separate video about this at some point. In early 1987, Nirvana took band practice very seriously. Kurt was just a stickler for practicing. We practiced a lot, every day for hours. Once Kurt got off work, it was practice nonstop. It was pretty crazy. Sometimes we'd play the same song over and over until Kurt got it right, you know. We would play the set, and then I would just start playing the songs again right away, without ever looking up to see if those guys wanted to play them again. I just whipped them into shape. Nirvana had started off with intense energy at a ferocious pace, but by the fall of 1987, things had slowed down for the band. By that point, Chris had moved to Tacoma, Kurt had moved to Olympia, and Aaron was still in Aberdeen. For several weeks, the bandmates lost touch with each other. Then, Kurt sent Chris a letter. I got a letter from him. It was kind of a funny letter. I wish I still had it. It said, "Let's get back to playing. No obligation." It was like he was sending me a form letter from some sales marketing firm. Like, "You've won something, no obligation." Well, he put that on there. And so we started getting back together. And then I really got into it, because it was fun. Kurt and Chris didn't reach back out to Aaron, and instead looked for a new drummer. Dale Crover filled in as a temporary drummer for Nirvana until the band could find a permanent replacement for Aaron Burkhardt. Since Dale was only intended to be a temporary drummer, Nirvana focused their energy on getting a demo recorded rather than setting up live gigs. I would pick up Kurt in Olympia, and we would drive to Aberdeen and rehearse at Dale's mom's house. We had some intense rehearsals. Dale's intense style of drumming gave the songs Nirvana was working on a heavier sound than they previously had had. It's only fitting, then, that Paper Cuts, one of Nirvana's heaviest songs, was written during this period where Dale Crover was drumming for Nirvana. The song is not only heavy musically, but it's also dark lyrically. In short, it's about a couple from Aberdeen who lock their children away in a room. possibly a reflection of how Kurt felt about certain parts of his own upbringing. Nirvana would soon record a 10-song demo with producer Jack Endino in Seattle. Kurt Cobain had called Jack Endino and asked if Nirvana could record some songs with him at Reciprocal Recordings. In their phone call, Kurt mentioned to Jack that their drummer was Dale Crover. Jack's band, Skinyard, had played shows with the Melvins before, and so he was already familiar with Dale Crover, which is partly why he agreed to record Nirvana. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you a clip from the interview I did with Jack Endino, where he talks about this phone call he had with Kurt. On January 23rd, 1988, Nirvana recorded their demo with Jack Endino. Jack named the 10-song demo Dale Demo, which is what the demo is still known as amongst collector circles. The 10 songs recorded for Dale Demo were If You Must, Downer, Floyd the Barber, Paper Cuts, Spank Through, Hairspray Queen, Aero Zeppelin, Beeswax, Mexican Seafood, and Pen Cap Chew. By the time Nirvana recorded Bleach with Jack Endino in late 1988, early 1989, Chad Channing was the drummer for Nirvana. But the versions of Downer, Floyd the Barber, and Paper Cuts, which appear on Bleach, are actually the recordings of those songs Nirvana did with Dale Crover for the Dale demo. So even though Dale was originally intended to be just a temporary drummer for Nirvana, 3 songs on Nirvana's first studio album feature Dale Crover on drums. Pretty cool. Bleach was released on June 15th, 1989. Paper Cuts was not released as a single from the album, though it remains a cult classic Nirvana song, if you will. It's one of Nirvana's lesser-known songs, but when it comes to many of Nirvana's aficionados, the big fans out there, Paper Cuts is definitely a song that is highly revered. Now, I want to show you guys a clip from the interview I did with Jack Endino. In this interview clip of mine, he talks about that first phone call he had with Kurt Cobain and what transpired afterwards. If you like my work, make sure to subscribe. That's the best way to help support me. Thanks for watching. How did your relationship start with Nirvana?
I'm pretty sure they heard some of the early Soundgarden recordings I had done, which ultimately became the Screaming Life record.
Nirvana heard that EP?
Yes,
yeah.
I think they would have heard that. They would have heard the Screaming Life EP, which I think came out in late 87. I could be wrong, but I think so. They called me in 1988, January 1988, and Kurt called, and he just wanted to come up and record a few songs, make a demo basically, and they didn't have a band name. And Dale Crover was playing drums with him at the time, just as a fill-in drummer. They didn't have a permanent drummer. And of course, Dale knew me. I'd known the Melvins for quite a while. Skinyard had played with them a few times. And Kurt, of course, being from Aberdeen, didn't know a lot of people in Seattle at the time, I don't think. But Dale probably, I'm thinking Dale maybe gave me a recommendation. I don't really know that. But Dale knew what I was doing and knew my band and knew the records I was making. And also, I'm pretty sure that Kurt heard some of the Soundgarden recordings I'd already done. At least so I've been told. Again, the internet, there's a lot of information out there. Make what you will of it. But in any case, he seemed to know that I was the guy he wanted to record with right then. So they came up and recorded 10 songs with me on January 23rd, 1988. And we recorded and mixed all 10 songs in 5 hours, basically one afternoon. And some of those songs in that actual form, and I mean, I spent about an hour per song. No, let me think, 15 minutes per song mixing those songs, because I think we mixed the 10 songs in, just over 2 hours. Those mixes are the ones that ended up on Incesticide.
Really?
Yeah, which always made me think, maybe if somebody gave me a chance to, spend an extra
10 minutes,
2 or 3 hours, maybe those mixes would be even better than they are, but they're not bad mixes. They're all right. I knew what I was doing at the time, so they don't sound bad. But, I know I could have made them a little bigger, beefier, or whatever, but nobody complained.
Did you know that they went ahead with, like, the label went ahead with making Incesticide? Were you notified of this?
Yeah, later on, of course. Yeah, of course I was. I was, and they just went ahead and used it, and yeah, I had nothing to say about it. They'd already made the decision. I did have an outtake from Bleach that I was sitting on that I had to like remind them about, which was Big Long Now. I said, "Hey, you guys, there's a song here that you forgot about. Why don't you throw that on the record?" So they put that on.
Hey, thanks for watching. My name is Daniel Sarkissian. I'm an independent filmmaker from Toronto.